So what if the reason you failed your last major certification exam or, maybe bombed that massive quarterly presentation wasn't actually because the material was too hard?
Right.
And what if it wasn't because you lacked discipline or focus or willpower? What if the problem was literally simply because you chose to study at 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m.?
It's a really radical reframing because, I mean, as high achieving adults, we are totally conditioned to blame ourselves when we hit a wall.
Yeah, exactly. We just assume we need to push harder, drink way more coffee, and just force the information in.
You do.
But what if brute force is actually the precise reason you are burning out? Today is Saturday, April 18th, 2026, and our deep dive into the source material today pulls from this really fascinating stack of manuals, analytical articles, and even daily worksheets.
Yeah, the daily worksheets are incredibly detailed.
They really are. And they're all centered around this educational framework called the Cosmic Study Rhythm, or CSR,
Hmm.
and it was created by an organization called the Shreejiastro Student Hub.
Which is an interesting source, to say the least.
Totally. And the mission of our deep dive today is to really unpack how this incredibly unique framework tackles the modern crisis of scattered attention. And it does this by aligning exactly what we learn with when our brains are, biologically ready to actually absorb it.
And we are going to look at how this scales pretty remarkably from a first grader just learning basic math all the way up to a postgraduate student facing high-stakes medical board exams.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the root of the problem and the highly, highly unlikely origin of this framework.
Yeah, the origin story is genuinely subversive because it comes from a place an audience focused on cognitive optimization would absolutely not expect.
Yeah.
The creators of this framework, the Shreejiastro Student Hub, are astrologers,
Which, and I have to be honest here, that immediately made me skeptical.
naturally.
Right. I mean, we are an audience that looks at neuroplasticity. We look at cognitive load theory,
Right.
behavioral economics. So you hear astrologers and you instantly expect star
Or
charts.
planetary alignments, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Or maybe a recommendation to wear a specific sapphire so you can pass your statistics midterm. It's like going to a mechanic for a broken engine, and instead of giving you a new part, they give you a yoga routine for your driving posture.
That is a brilliant analogy.
You just don't expect a highly structured cognitive behavioral framework that's designed to optimize working memory.
No, you don't. But what's fascinating here is how they arrived at this methodology. In their extensive consultations with um, teachers, occupational therapists, parents, and students all across the country.
They're looking for patterns, right?
Exactly. And they kept diagnosing the exact same structural failure across all age groups. It was this severe systemic decline in natural focus. Learning felt entirely forced.
Like every single day was just a grind.
Right. Distraction wasn't just common, it was instantaneous. Now, instead of offering traditional esoteric remedies, they actually looked at the systemic mechanics of the problem.
And their conclusion from all this was that modern learning is entirely lacking in rhythm, timing, and habit structure. We live in a world where knowledge is frictionless. I mean, you can pull up a dense industry report or, I don't know, a Python coding tutorial in 3 seconds.
Literally 3 seconds.
But the cognitive effort required to actually absorb that knowledge is constantly being applied when the mind is at its absolute lowest state of receptivity.
Precisely. They recognized that the traditional education system, and, by extension, corporate training too, it treats the human mind like a hard drive.
Just plug it in and download.
Exactly. It assumes you can just plug in a cable and transfer data at maximum speed, regardless of the time of day or the physiological state of the user.
Yeah.
Their core philosophy is that when your intellectual effort aligns with your biological readiness, learning flows with significantly less strain.
It fundamentally shifts the entire paradigm, doesn't it? From what you need to study to how and when you are actually attempting to study it.
It changes everything.
So to actually execute that alignment, to map the effort to the timing, the CSR framework breaks learning down into distinct, highly specific phases. And they use a color-coded system.
Which they call the three colors of cognition.
Right.
And right from the start, the manuals are explicit. CSR is absolutely not a rigid timetable. It is not some productivity tracker designed to squeeze every last drop of efficiency out of your day.
Thank goodness, because we have enough of those.
Seriously, no. It is an energy-aware framework operating on three distinct cognitive frequencies. So first, you have the blue phase, which is memory.
Okay, so blue is for calm, low-pressure recall. This is where you revise and consolidate. It's best used for rote memorization, like Definitions, formulas, vocabulary.
Labeling diagrams, things like
Oh,
that.
right. It's the what of learning.
Then there is the green phase, which is concept. This
Yes.
is where the goal is to understand, to connect, and clarify.
The why and the how, basically.
Exactly. Derivations, linking complex philosophical ideas, mapping out disease mechanisms. It requires a vastly different, much deeper kind of cognitive energy than blue.
And finally, the red phase, which is practice. This is the heavy lifting, applying, solving complex problems, writing essays from scratch.
Yes, it's best for timed work, mathematical numericals, mock tests, and high-speed execution.
Right. So, to summarize the taxonomy, blue is consolidation, green is integration, and red is execution.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Now, I have to stop you there, though, because I am looking at these three colors, and I'm honestly just not convinced. Wait, isn't studying.
You're skeptical of the color coding.
Yeah. Do we really need to color code it into blue, green, and red phases? When I prep for a massive project, I just sit at my desk, open the documents, and stay there until the work is done. Breaking it down into these micro phases feels like we are wildly overcomplicating a very basic human activity.
I hear that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
treating all cognitive effort as equal is the precise reason adults burn out. It's why they abandon new skills and fail to retain information. You have to look at the underlying cognitive mechanisms at play here.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, think about working memory versus long-term memory retrieval.
Okay, break that down for me.
A blue memory task reviewing flashcards or rereading highlighted definitions relies on long-term memory retrieval. Physiologically, that is a relatively low-energy cognitive state.
Makes sense.
But a green concept task requires your working memory to hold multiple new variables at once and synthesize entirely new neural pathways. That requires immense metabolic energy.
Wow, okay.
And then a red practice task requires you to execute under pressure.
So if I sit down at 9 p.m. after a grueling, 10-hour workday, and I try to do a red phase task, say, taking a timed practice test for financial certification, what's happening biologically?
Your working memory is already depleted from a whole day of decision fatigue. It's like trying to start a manual transmission car in fifth gear.
Oh, that's rough.
Right. The engine isn't broken, you aren't a bad driver, but the entire system instantly stalls out because you skip the low-resistance momentum of first and second gear. Red practice requires the momentum of blue and green.
So if I try to execute in fifth gear at 9 p.m.,
You stare at the first question, realize you can't process it, and you feel like a total failure.
and I fail not because I lack the intelligence, but because my brain literally does not have the red execution energy available at that moment.
Exactly.
But if at 9 p.m. I recognized my energy state and chose a blue task instead, like calmly reviewing a list of financial definitions, I could actually accomplish it.
Precisely. You match the task type with your physiological readiness. You aren't changing the total volume of work.
You're just moving it around.
Yes, you are slotting it into the biological window where it will encounter the least resistance. It entirely prevents that immediate wall of frustration.
That honestly reframes the entire concept of procrastination for me. If treating all cognitive effort as equal is the root of adult burnout, where does that bad habit actually start?
It starts really early.
Right. And to see how this prevents long-term cognitive mismatch, the sources actually take us all the way back to the genesis of a student's journey. So let's look at how this foundation is built for young children, specifically in classes 1 through 5.
This is such a critical developmental stage because young children naturally struggle with scattered homework and evening fatigue.
Oh, absolutely.
Without a predictable structure, even highly intelligent kids feel completely overwhelmed, not by the difficulty of the material, mind you, but by the chaos of the evening routine itself. So the CSR framework steps in to create a gentle, predictable rhythm.
And it starts with the daily school section on their worksheet, right? It asks the kids to note down what the teacher explained, which is totally standard.
Very standard, yes.
But then it includes these subjective prompts. It asks what was a little hard, and then crucially, how I felt. And the kids have to check a box indicating if the work felt comfortable, okay, or challenging.
Yes.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. I mean, they are essentially asking 9-year-olds for an emotional temperature check on their fractions homework.
It is brilliant, honestly, because of the metacognitive foundation it builds.
Metacognitive.
Yeah, thinking about thinking. By capturing not just what was taught, but how the child experienced it emotionally, The child is actively bridging the psychological gap between the classroom and their home environment.
Ah, I
They are
love
learning
that.
to observe their own mind. You're learning that fluctuation is just a data point. It's not a permanent state of being.
That's huge for a kid. And the framework completely engineers the environment for the parents, too, because instead of the parents guessing when their kid has the biological energy to sit down or waiting until the kid is just exhausted after dinner,
Which is what usually happens.
right, the parents receive a guided timing reminder via WhatsApp.
That specific mechanism is so vital. It replaces the classic emotionally charged household yelling match of go do your homework right now with an objective external trigger.
It takes the pressure off the parent.
Exactly. It shifts the parent from being an enforcer to being a calm facilitator. The WhatsApp message simply nudges the household that an appropriate low-resistance study window is naturally opening up.
And we absolutely have to talk about how they handle the weekends because it goes against every hyper-competitive parenting instinct out there today.
Really does.
Sundays are explicitly reserved for a reset and light study. It's strictly capped at 15 to 20 minutes for these younger kids.
Just 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, they focus on just one thing done well from the past week and one single goal for the next week.
It is entirely about building the habit of reflection and consolidation, not squeezing in extra rote memorization. It protects their baseline energy.
So they build this incredible emotional intelligence and this awareness of their own biological energy levels when they are young. But if a fourth grader is learning to log their feelings, how does that philosophy survive contact with the actual terror of high school?
That's the real test, right?
Because as coursework gets heavier in classes 6 to 12, the stakes become very real. Does this gentle framework completely collapse under the weight of board exams?
The framework doesn't collapse. It matures. The focus shifts significantly to help these teenagers stay concept clear and exam aware. But crucially, they do this without increasing their study hours.
Wait, really? Without increasing hours?
Exactly. That what was hard column from elementary school, it evolves into a section specifically for unclear points or doubts.
I love the psychology behind this. The framework explicitly instructs the teenagers, doubts are not a weakness. This is your score booster list. Don't hide your doubts.
Yes.
And think about how that applies to us, the listener, right now in the workplace. How often do we sit in a dense strategy meeting, completely lose the thread of the conversation, but just nod along anyway?
They do it all the time.
We hide our doubts on a project because we don't want to look incompetent to our boss.
Exactly. In typical schooling, and frankly in corporate culture, admitting you don't know something feels like a fundamental failure. But here, it is framed as the exact objective roadmap to a better outcome.
It totally removes the shame from the learning process.
It does. And this is also where they introduced the biorhythm rule for teenagers. If a student is stuck or fatigued, they are explicitly instructed to switch modes, not to push harder.
Right. So if the red practice work, like, say, doing timed physics equations, is making them want to pull their hair out, they do not force the issue.
No, they don't.
They downshift the cognitive gear. They drop down to green concept work to review the theory, or even blue memory work to just, look over some formulas.
And this ties directly into their strict evening guidelines. The manuals mandate that late-night study is simply not expected.
Not expected at all.
Not at all. Sleep physically protects memory consolidation. The rule is to stop before fatigue sets in, because one good, biologically aligned study slot beats 3 tired, miserable slots.
So what does this all mean in practice? Are they actively telling high schoolers, the exact ones facing massive high-pressure university admissions, to not push through the pain?
Yes, they are.
Are they really saying no 2 a.m. cramming sessions fueled by anxiety and, 4 energy drinks?
They absolutely are. And this raises an important question about our cultural obsession with performative studying.
Performative studying.
Yes. We equate suffering, exhaustion, and the sheer volume of hours with effective learning. But the CSR framework is teaching biological self-regulation.
It's a totally different mindset.
Pushing heavy, complex tasks when your working memory is practically zero is entirely counterproductive. A 2 a.m. cram session might feel productive because you are suffering, but cognitively, you are retaining very little. You aren't learning the material, you are just practicing being stressed.
Practicing being stressed.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a brutal realization.
It's true, though.
It really is. That
Yeah.
perfectly describes how most adults approach continuing education or late-night project prep.
Hmm.
But I want to push this framework to its absolute limit now.
Okay, let's do.
Because I'm with you on teenagers needing sleep. But let's escalate this to the highest possible stakes. Let's look at the advanced mastery section of the sources.
A postgraduate level.
Exactly. This is for university students, postgrads, people taking massive, life-altering competitive exams like the UPSC, the CET, or the NEET PG medical boards.
Right. At this elite level, the coursework is incredibly dense and conceptually complex. Success here absolutely depends on conceptual clarity and rigorous consistency.
Yeah.
You literally cannot brute force your way through a medical residency exam on adrenaline alone.
But the framework's approach here looks like extreme restraint. The instructions explicitly tell these advanced students that using just 3 to 4 deliberate study slots a day is sufficient.
3 to 4, yeah.
The worksheets actually have intentionally unused rows. And the manual tells the user that an empty row indicates intentional restraint, not lost opportunity.
It's a hard concept for high achievers to grasp.
Well, yeah, now I have to push back hard on this. I hear you on efficiency, but the math just does not seem to add up here.
Up so.
Only 3 or 4 slots for someone prepping for the UPSC or the medical boards. If I am trying to become a surgeon and my competition is in the library doing 12-hour marathons, aren't they just covering vastly more ground than me? If I only study 4 focus slots a day, I am going to fail.
It sounds mathematically impossible until you understand the mechanics of cognitive fatigue at the elite level.
Okay, explain that.
At the postgrad level, fatigue doesn't just come from reading too many pages. It comes from self-diagnosing your academic gaps incorrectly, which leads to massive energy waste.
Wait, how does someone studying 12 hours a day misdiagnose their gaps?
Let's use the specific domain examples from the sources. Say you are a medical student preparing for the NEET PG exams. You take a massive 200-question mock test, which is a high-space red practice task.
Right, execution mode.
You completely fail a section on cardiology. Your immediate panic-driven instinct is to just do 500 more cardiology practice problems. You stay in the library for 12 hours grinding through red tasks.
Because you feel like you just need more practice.
Exactly. But you are still failing. Why? Because you are failing due to a green concept gap. You don't actually understand the underlying pathophysiology of heart failure.
So you are burning massive amounts of your highest tier cognitive energy in the red execution phase, trying to fix a problem that actually lives in the green integration phase.
Exactly. You're trying to start the car in 5th gear with a broken transmission.
Oh, man.
The CSR framework demands precision over volume. For that medical student, blue memory is memorizing the exact names of the cranial nerves or pharmacology dosages.
Right, the rote stuff.
Green concept is understanding the complex disease mechanisms and receptor interactions. And red practice is executing the NEET PG style multiple choice questions under time pressure.
So if you miss an MCQ,
You have to accurately diagnose the specific cognitive failure. You have to ask, did I forget the name of the drug, which is a blue problem? Or do I not understand how the drug alters the patient's heart rate, which is a green problem?
that is incredible. So by forcing the postgraduate student to categorize their failure into blue, green, or red, the framework ensures that those 3 to 4 study slots are laser targeted.
Laser targeted, exactly.
You don't need to sit in a library for 12 hours if you are actually fixing the right cognitive gap at the right biological time. The worksheet supports the learner. The learner does not serve the worksheet.
Exactly. It strips away the comforting illusion of productivity that comes from just suffering at a desk for 12 hours.
Or performative suffering.
Yes, it demands that you are rigorously honest about what knowledge you actually lack and rigorously honest about what your brain is physiologically capable of processing in that specific moment.
It is such a profound paradigm shift. And, we've spent this entire deep dive looking at how the cosmic study rhythm applies to academic learning, from first graders logging their emotional state all the way to medical students diagnosing their precise cognitive failures.
We have.
But I want to bring this right back to you listening to this right now, because this methodology isn't just about passing a syllabus.
Not at all.
Think about your own life. The next time you are prepping for a massive quarterly strategy meeting, or you're trying to catch up on a dense, highly technical industry report, or even if you're just sitting down on a Sunday trying to learn a new programming language.
Stop and ask yourself.
Yeah, stop and ask yourself, are you trying to do heavy executing red practice work when your brain, at the end of a chaotic 10-hour workday, only has the physiological energy for low-pressure blue memory work?
Right.
Are you fighting your own natural biological rhythm just to feel the performative satisfaction of working hard?
It completely changes how you structure your entire adult life. You start aggressively hoarding your green and red cognitive energy for when it really matters, which is usually early in your biological window.
And you just completely forgive yourself when you only have blue energy left at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And stepping back, looking at how powerful this is, it actually leads to a really provocative thought.
Oh,
Where are we
where are
with
we
that?
going with this?
Well, if we can optimize our daily cognitive rhythms for acquiring new knowledge by tracking our biological energy, like matching those blue, green, and red phases to our daily physiological peaks and valleys, could we scale this up? Could we map out an entire lifetime's learning rhythm?
Wow, that is a fascinating extrapolation. You're talking about macro rhythms over decades.
Right. What if we could identify specific decades in our lives where our brains are naturally biologically primed to master entirely new fields? Society operates on this unspoken assumption that all our heavy foundational learning happens in our teens and 20s.
And we just work.
Exactly. But what if we have a massive untapped green concept phase naturally waiting for us in our 40s or 50s? What if that specific decade is a biological window perfectly primed for integrating complex new philosophies, synthesizing decades of varied experience, or completely changing careers from scratch?
Rather than just coasting on the increasingly outdated learning we did when we were 22.
Yes. If matching effort to timing is the secret to mastering a Tuesday, maybe matching effort to timing is the secret to mastering a lifespan.
It suggests that adult burnout isn't a permanent character flaw, and it isn't a permanent state of being. It's just a symptom of fundamentally bad timing.
I love that.
It tells us that there is always a phase coming where the mind will be ready again.
It's an incredibly hopeful, empowering way to look at how we acquire knowledge at any age. Thank you for taking this intellectual journey with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Hopefully, the next time you sit down, clear your schedule and look at that massive stack of complex materials you need to master, you won't feel that overwhelming, demoralizing wave of fatigue. You'll just pause, ask yourself what color your brain is biologically ready for right now, and you'll know exactly where to start.